Stay in your lane. We are not the same. We cannot explain things about to change. Cause we run the game. Cause we run the game.
Howdy doody, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another new form event with me, your host, Brandon Groce, and the wonderful Chris Durrell. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a very special guest because we're working on some very awesome things. I'm not going to steal all the thunder for today's session. I'm going to give Chris all the time in the world to introduce himself, what we're going over to today, and really just have all the time in the world with you guys in the chat. For those of you guys on YouTube, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and those of you on Instagram, don't forget to follow and also like Chris. Well, actually, you're going to like Chris, but don't forget to follow Threed Software, his company, and also him personally. So with that said, if you guys are not familiar with Newform, we are a community of over 10,000 strong in our community Discord, where creatives just like you create amazing things, get feedback, and join workshops like this. With that being said, if you guys want to learn more about Newform and you guys are on Instagram, feel free to put in the live chat. Join JOIN, and you guys will get an automatic DM about everything about the community, information there. So that is all the house cleaning items I have for today. I'm going to give all of the rest of the attention to Chris. And actually, before we do that, I see a couple people in the chat saying hello. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know from you guys today, because our topic for today is related to Wix Studio. If you don't know what Wix Studio is, put it again in the live chat on Instagram. We'll send you information on what exactly it is, because it's going to be very relevant for what we have today. So with that said, I'm going to stop running my mouth. Chris, how are you, brother? How are you feeling?
I am doing well, Brandon. Thanks for the invite. I hope that the audience is ready to go deep and learn a bit of new stuff for the web today.
Oh, for sure. We got 70 people ready, sweaty, and well, hopefully not the first part. Hopefully not sweaty, but ready in some regard. So, Chris, what are we working on today, man? Give us a little bit. Actually, before we even do that, give us a little bit of background on you. We need to know the person behind what it is that we're learning today, and then we can dive in a little bit of what exactly we're doing.
Yeah. Well, my background is a developer. I am 100% developer. In fact, when I was younger, they used to call me Mr. Fix-It because I was trying to find solutions for everything. So I've been working with what used to be called Wix Code, and then Corvid, and then you know what happened, and then Velo for about 6 years now, since late 2017 into early 2018. And my passion is developing, right? I love to make people more productive with whatever I build. And so for today, we're going to be looking at spatial web, which is augmented reality and virtual reality on the web. There are a lot of things that this topic could be, but we're going to focus in today on how do you do this for your own website. Now, by the end of this, you should have something practical. You should have something that you can figure out how to implement on your own.
All right, let's do it. So are we getting into some screen sharing action? Shall we move into the nitty gritty? What are we doing?
Let's do it. Let's pull up the presentation and go forward.
All right, let's do it. Screen shared. We're ready for you.
Okay, let's jump right in. So, as mentioned, we're talking about the spatial web today. I'm going to give you guys the heads up. I love to explain things. Hopefully I don't over-explain, but by the end, an idea that the web is changing, and this is one way to capitalize on it in a very practical way. So, what we're going to talk about, we're going to get comfy with a couple terms, because terms can be very tricky, especially with something brand new. If you have no exposure to 3D, then some of the terms are going to be brand new to you today. So the goal is to make sure we're at least comfortable with it, so that when I keep using the terms later on, you're like, okay, cool, I know what that means. What can it do? We're going to talk about high level. This is what augmented reality and virtual reality can do in general. And then what can I do? What's the practical? What's the point, Chris? Like, you told me all of these great things. What can I do? We're going to briefly touch advanced use cases, practical use cases, concerns and limitations, which is very important, and then getting started today. It seems like a lot. This is not a lecture. There are going to be some live demos in between, but most importantly, as Brandon mentioned, please drop your questions in the chat so we can actually make something interactive. We want it to be that when people come back and watch the recording, they're like, but I had that question. And then somebody asks it in the chat and they're good to go. So a bit of background and a bit of story. They say necessity has a mom, and her name is invention. My foray into 3D design came around summer of 2022, around that period. Because I also work with a nonprofit called Youth Can Do IT. And every year we kept an event, a conference for international women in IT. So that would be every April. And we'd have this big event where people would come in, speakers would come in and speak to these young ladies. But of course, 2022 is the midst of the pandemic. And so we had to figure out a new way to actually hold this conference. And so I had been hearing about the metaverse. I'd been reading a bit about the metaverse, doing a bit of blogging about it. But it became very practical for us because we actually had to figure out how to host a conference when everybody was tired of Zoom. And so we dug deep, we found a platform, we actually built our own virtual space, and we held this conference in the metaverse. And the cool thing is that we had persons presenting from overseas, of course, persons from Meta itself. But we also had the Minister of Education join. And her team was so excited. They were like, hey, we even created her own avatar. And we're going to upload the avatar and use it. And things like that were very exciting because it showed adoption even at what is typically very, very archaic, the government level. But they themselves were happy to actually jump on to this virtual reality experience and present. And so that got me into this 3D design interest. I had a web development background and an app development background, but this was my first foray into this metaverse VR thing, which is important because you have to understand that to understand me. What I realized was that even though the experience was virtual, the impact was very real. And so that's kind of what I want to take you through today, because I know there are skeptics on the call. I'm a healthy skeptic myself about how useful can augmented reality be. But I want you to keep in mind that even though the experience may be virtual, the impact is very, very real. So the purpose, how to add augmented reality and how it can actually enhance your website. So you're not just adding it like it's a gimmick or something fun to do. But we're going to look at how can you do this, and specifically for Wix. So Wix Studio especially benefits from this. But the concepts that we're going to discuss are going to be relevant to all platforms. All right, so we're going to jump right in. Brandon, we still good? Hope we're
good to go, man. We're good. I'm just I'm juggling you and the two chats that we got going on. Just trying to feel out things. So I'm letting you do your thing. You're doing excellent.
Cool. So, find some of these terms. Augmented reality. How does that fit into all the other R's that you've probably heard about? You know the R's I'm talking about. You've heard of augmented reality, mixed reality, and virtual reality, and their big parent, which is the XR space. So, in summary, and I want to make this plain, you can read the slides, I know that, but extended reality, or XR, is the big bubble. So all of the other terms fall under XR. And so we're going to be discussing XR later on, but it's important to know that extended reality, or XR, covers everybody. Augmented reality talks about when your physical space or your physical location is overlaid with digital objects. That is the base definition for AR. So it deals with things like depth and lighting. It can actually adjust based on where you are, but it adds a level of reality to the experience by putting something into your physical space. So when you're thinking augmented reality, what does it look like? Amazon's app, if you purchase on Amazon, they have a feature that says view in your room. That is augmented reality. Pokemon Go had a big augmented reality aspect to it. When it was 2016, if you can imagine, it was almost 8 years ago that really went big. Pokemon Go is augmented reality in action, and then Instagram also has filters and effects that they track your face, and you see somebody put their face as a bear mask or a wolf. That's augmented reality because it's overlaid on the physical of their face with a little bit of extra features like facial tracking. Then we have mixed reality. Now, I'll be honest with you, mixed reality to me is kind of like a marketing term because there used to be a distinction, but it's getting that much thinner now. Because mixed reality is very similar to augmented reality in that you're still seeing your physical space, but there's a higher level of interaction. So the objects that you're placing have even more awareness of the space. If you've ever seen demos of persons having spaces where like they have objects that if you roll it behind the couch, it disappears. That's something called occlusion. So it becomes occluded, blocked. That would be something that mixed reality enables. So you have a higher level of interaction because there's a higher level of understanding of the environment. So HoloLens 2, you'll find that manufacturers actually use mixed reality when they're doing manufacturing. So Brandon and I could be in a room and we're working on a new Ferrari, and I'm on one side of the car and Brandon's on the other, but our experience is synchronized. That would fall under mixed reality in application. That should say Apple Vision Pro, but it seems that autocorrect got me. So Apple Vision Pro in a lot of cases uses mixed reality because it has high understanding of the space that you're in. And car manufacturers and architectural overlays also use mixed reality by being able to place on the ground what they would like to build and then tweak it. So you may see examples of persons like dragging and moving the shape of the object and making it bigger. A lot of that falls on mixed reality. And then virtual reality is the third brother in this family, and VR is fully immersive. So when we're talking VR, we're talking about experiences that you cannot see the outside world. You are fully blocked in. And these are interactive experiences. So think Beat Saber. If you've ever seen the Beat Saber game, the only thing you can see is those notes coming out your head, right? You can't see anybody around you. And that can also cause some accidents, especially if you're all in with the game. Then we have virtual mini golf as an example, which is something that I play as well. I play virtual mini golf with my dad sometimes on his Quest. And we're hundreds of miles away, but we can still play and I can still beat him in golf like a good son. And then virtual classes. That's one way that virtual reality was used, especially in Japan during COVID. They would have these virtual classrooms where the teacher could actually take a virtual marker or chalk and write on the chalkboard and actually engage the students by drawing out on the board rather than just sharing screen. And then of course the metaverse would fall under virtual reality. So XR covers everything, and then each of these three terms falls under XR. And it's basically a spectrum of how immersed are you. Now, what I want to kind of clarify is also this term about the metaverse, because I've been doing some reading on it over the years and writing on it. And I want to be clear on what it is and what it's not. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I'm sure you have heard of it. And so I wanted to address it. The word metaverse is a very old word. It came from 1972 from Neil Stephenson's book. And the word meta, the part of the word meta means beyond, and verse is from universe. So it's really supposed to be an extension to your physical universe or virtual reality. The things that make the metaverse are, well, let me tell you what it's not first. The metaverse was not invented by Meta. It's not owned by Meta. It's a very old concept. And it's also not the same as a one-player game. So if you hop into Halo, that's not the metaverse. If you're on Club Penguin back in the day, that's not the metaverse. There are four things that make a metaverse. It has to be fully immersive. You have to have an interactive environment. So you must be able to click and play and even pay through that environment. You're represented by an avatar of yourself, and it must be a shared space. So you're sharing it with other persons. And so just to get that clear, the metaverse was not from Meta. This is a concept that has existed long before. And a lot of things fall under that category today. Cool. I'm imagining you guys
good.
Cool. So let's jump into augmented reality on the web, right? Because it is a big topic. And I did mention that there are going to be some demos. So first things first, AR is a technology that superimposes digital content, such as 3D models, animations, or interactive elements onto the physical world. And then it relies on advanced technologies. So computer vision is one of them. Computer vision allows your device, whether it's your phone or your headset, to understand what it's seeing. right? To identify objects and say, this is a cat, this is a couch. It uses the sensors on your phone, so it can use your gyroscope to understand your orientation. It can use your GPS sensor to find out where you are physically. And that opens up so many interesting interactions. And it also does depth mapping by looking to see how far away things are, so it can do things like that big word we used earlier, occlusion, so that things are not showing up in front of walls when they should be behind the wall. On the web, very important, we implement AR, VR, and mixed reality, MR, through WebXR. So WebXR is the implementation, is the API on how we implement AR, VR, and mixed reality on the web. So this is an example of one of the tools that you can actually use to build out these experiences. This is a tool called Play Canvas, and Play Canvas is more on the extreme side of model creation and model generation, but they allow you to do things like design, test, add animations, and then export and embed on your websites, like a Wix website, with high functionality. So that's one way that you could actually go about adding augmented reality to your website. Play Canvas is one of them. But before you jump into that, and I promise you demos are coming soon, before you jump into that, you need to choose very carefully what platform is right for you. So before you start designing any augmented reality solution, you need to figure out what is the result that you're trying to achieve. You are designing this wonderful experience, and that's great, but what is it that you actually want to do? Is it that you want to increase sales? Is it that you want to just make your website stand out and win an award, like those awards with the 3 W's, the AW awards? Is that what you're trying to do, right? Are you trying to set up yourself to become an animator yourself? And so you want to show a portfolio in a way that is advanced rather than the same way that everybody else does. Understanding the goal of your interaction before you start designing is critical. Otherwise, as somebody wisely said, if you don't know where you're going, then you'll never know when you end up there. And you don't want to be in that experience when you're designing, especially something as complex as augmented reality. And so very, very important to know what you're trying to do. The next thing is your target audience. Just like when you're designing your website, you need to figure out who your target audience is when you're designing your app or your augmented reality application. Now, this is a Wix community, so most people would know that when you load your Wix site on Safari, sometimes you get these, nice surprise you weren't planning, but now you have to plan for. And unfortunately, the same is true for augmented reality. So while you may be able to see something work the way you intended on Apple, you need to also test it on Android, because there's a different implementation of how they do scene tracking, right? Things like that, you have to actually be testing on multiple devices. And so if you know that your audience is 90% Apple, while you're going to test for both platforms, you're going to also say, all right, maybe I need to make sure that Apple is as 100% as possible, and then we can deal with Android post-launch, right? Because as with any project, you're going to have timelines that you have to stick to. You're going to have cost. So you have to figure out how you're going to deliver the value anyway. So figure out who your audience is. Check your Google Analytics. Check what devices people are using. If people are mostly on desktop, that's a different experience from mobile for sure. Because while they can interact with your model on desktop, they're not going to be able to go into augmented reality mode like they can on mobile. So that's also important for you to know who your audience is, because that's vital to the entire solution. And then how complex do you want the experience to be? So that maze image there is actually very specific because there's actually an augmented reality maze. And I can share the resource after the call, Brandon, but this is something that you can actually put if you have a big field ahead of you, and you can actually navigate the maze. And it's kind of wild because it's a massive model. And then you have to get to like the middle of the maze where the prize is. If you're going to be building something like that, then you're going to have to go about a different approach than if you're doing a simple model for a couch for somebody's living room. And so how complex do you want your experience to be for your visitor? If you're selling something that has many moving parts to it, and you want to have an augmented reality model or a 3D model of it, will you be supporting animation? If you're selling a swing set and you want to show the swings actually going up and down, or you want to show the wind blowing through the parts on the top of the swing set, then are you going to add those animations, which will add weight to the model, or are you going to leave them out and leave them to people's imagination? So you need to figure out how complex should the experience be before you jump into selecting the tools that you're going to use and the platform you're going to launch with. Now, every web AR effect is going to include at least these 4 things. The models. We're going to talk about that because I'm hearing some people saying from wherever you are, but Chris, I don't have any models. So what's the point? I don't know how to 3D model. Well, I have good news. I don't really know how to 3D model either, but there are resources online that will allow you to get started very quickly, either with pre-built models or to build your own. So models are very important. They're core to the entire experience. A 3D model is that thing that you see on the screen that is projected into the space. We're focusing on 2 formats. One is called GLTF, right? That is like a global format that most people use for 3D models. And the other is USDZ, which is Apple's proprietary model for 3D rendering. And so they have different ways that they work when you include them on your site, but these are just 2 of many formats. You have FBX, STL. All of these are different types of formats, but we're focusing on these 2 because these are really specialized for augmented reality, and they're all over the place. Plane tracking, that's how you figure out what's a wall and what's a floor, right? How do you actually figure out that this is supposed to be something my model should sit on versus this is something that my model should stick on, like a wall. The dev tools are important, how you're going to build it, and the viewer is very important because you need to figure out how you're going to show this on your site after you've done all your building. So here's a quick example of what it would look like on a Wix site. So this is a viewer that you can integrate. This is a 3D model of a Lincoln Continental, right? So I'm just going to interact with it. This is a live demo. And the idea here is that you can zoom in, you can see all the details of the car that have been rendered in the model. And so if you're a car sales place or a car showcase, as I have for this demo site, and you can go deep. You can even see the animations of the headlights here, you know, like that traditional Lincoln style. You can also go a little deeper. So this is one for Lamborghini. And what I like about this one is that the animations play very nicely, right? They're very smooth. And as you go in, you can start to see more and more detail. And so you get more of the effect because this is actually a 3D model. This is something that was sculpted in a sense, and it's better than just a picture on the site. What it also allows you to do, if you use a little bit of imagination, is when you're spinning this around and you're zooming in, you start to see things that you wouldn't see on a pixelated image. So you can imagine this being used not just for car sales, but for things like anatomy. You know, teachers actually pulling up the anatomy of a body and saying, guys, scan this link, you'll be able to see this as well. It could be used in real estate where these models are set up and you can actually say, boy, this is what the wall would look like if it's dark brown versus all white. And you just click a button and the homeowner or potential homeowner could see, oh, wow, this is going to be good, right? There's so many applications, and I only listed 2, but so many applications of having more detail and a 3D scan of your space or of your model that open up a world of opportunities. And this is a Wix Studio site, as you can see from the nice branding at the top on my non-premium Wix Studio site. Now, if you want to go to this link, there's a QR code here. If you can't scan because you're on mobile, we'll share the link as well afterwards. And so here's a quick demo video of what
and
it
also
looks like
for reference,
open up. Yep.
Sorry, for reference for everybody, we're having a little bit of lag on Chris's screen, but the actual site is a hella smooth. Have no fear, have no doubt. So if you guys do want to check it out, definitely go and scan that QR code so you can check it out yourself and see how it works.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you for that. I don't want my Wi-Fi making Wix look bad. So let's jump right into the demo.
You're good.
So let's play that video. Just gonna jump a little bit forward. We don't need to hear the audio for sure. And then we're gonna just see what it looks like when you click from mobile. Right, so let's say you've gone through the models, you like the cars, the Lamborghini is speaking to you. You say, boy, I wanna see this in my space. I wanna see this in my own backyard. What does this look like? So this is my phone. You can see the actual model comes up from the site, right? This is the power of it. It figured out where the floor is so it doesn't go through the floor. And I can walk around it. So I can actually see not just the animations, but in detail. I can say, is this gonna fit in my garage? Or is it not, right? You can actually do this directly through your website. And that's one of the powers of WebXR. And so once you scan that link, you'll be able to do that as well in your backyard or inside. So AR compatibility, fun topic to discuss. This is one of the concerns you have to think about when you're designing, because as I mentioned, each of these platforms has a different way of implementing. So Androids have something called AR Core. That's their native way of implementing augmented reality solutions. iOS devices have something called AR Kit. And then VR headsets have either their built-in engine that handles AR, or they will use the web as well. So that's important to remember, because if you give somebody a native experience, then you have different things to consider when they open up. In my experience, native is always better at plane tracking. So if you open the native AR functionality on each of these devices, it looks a lot better in terms of finding the ground. But Apple will render something differently from how Android renders it. And so you have to be careful with your model, because what might be brown on one device might be light brown on another, if it's not rendered correctly. Now, the good news is that even though each manufacturer has these requirements, we have standards, right? That's why we have WebXR. And so even though these are the native ways that each manufacturer handles things, WebXR is in the same way that a website should run the same on an Android device, iOS device, a Windows PC. You have that same freedom with WebXR, where most features are handled across the board, including VR headsets. And so that is one of the beautiful things about building for the web. That's one of the reasons I love building for the web. I had an Android development background, and when I first tried out Wix, actually I was recommended to try Wix, and I was like, why would I use this blogging platform to do custom code? And this was 2017. But one of the things I love is that Wix continues to add features, and they also allow you to kind of add your own features via custom code and custom elements, which we use a lot. And so the web allows you to build once, ship everywhere, right? That's the beauty of using WebXR to build your augmented reality experience. And so here's one of the cool demos I wanted to share with you, because again, I want you to be able to try this as well. So what you can actually do is, if you find a model online, there is a site that we're going to share called Model Viewer that allows you to test out how your model would look before you've gone through the process of adding it to your own website. So that link is modelviewer.dev, and you just go to their editor. And this is from Google. This is their own product, but they allow you to really do a lot of interactions. But the reason I want to pull it up here is because a lot of you want to start, but again, you don't have that much experience in modeling. So say you find something that you like online, right? And I'll share some of the resources where you can find them. But say you find this pinball machine, this really cool Gulligan's Island pinball machine. And you're like, I want this on my website. I want people to click the pinball machine and go wild. I want them to see the animation of the ball in their space. Did I say go wild? And go wild. But I don't like the blue. Well, one of the things you can do on Model Viewer is you can actually go to the material that you want to change. So I'm gonna click through and see if I can find the blue quickly. But if not, okay, let's deal with the speaker grill up top for time. So it flashes red, so I know that I have the right item, which is this top area, the speaker grill. I'm gonna zoom out. Let's say I want it to change color. What I can do is head over here and just say, all right, I know it's, kind of dark, but I want it to be blue like the rest of it. Then you have the ability to actually change the textures on these models and then download the final result and put it on your own site, which is excellent, especially if you're just starting out and you don't know what most of these terms mean. This is a safe place to play around and actually edit the models and put up on your own site. And a lot of these models, including this one, are available with a Creative Commons license, so you don't have to pay for them. So this one is a downloadable Creative Commons asset with animation that you can actually use on your site. How are we doing in terms of lag?
In terms of lag is there, but we're okay. And just to bring it down to my level, what this is and what we're looking at, this is obviously it's a live demo, but this is something that somebody can embed on their site. And what we're looking over at the model viewer, this is what they can actually change, like the skin of the actual model. Yes?
100%, you got it.
Awesome. Very cool. So basically, in a nutshell, this site is a demo site where there's a whole bunch of different models and you can come in and kind of play without knowing how to build things, and it like change what it looks like from a I guess I'm just so used to the video games where the skins essentially. Yeah, you can put different skins on it, embed this on your site, and got you.
Yeah, skins is a good word. And let's say you're ready to embed it. They actually give you the code to embed it with. And Wix has a very powerful element called the custom element. And so Model Viewer basically says you can integrate this to your site through the Wix custom element and make this show up just as you would want it to. And I think that is one easy way people can embed it in their site when they're done here. So you just click download scene and you get the whole customized scene to re-upload. And you're right, they give you a couple models you can try, like the horse model, right? That you can cycle through in your editing.
That's pretty cool, man.
All right. Yeah, cool. I think so too. I really do think so. Now, this thing could go really long. So let me just jump forward to pretty much the assets and the questions that you might have, like, how do I actually access these assets? Well, there are a couple platforms that you can check, and these would be my recommendations. Sketchfab.com is one of the most known websites for 3D models. So sketchfab.com is a great place to get these assets from. If you want to build for yourself, there are tools that allow you to do that. Blender, of course, is a good one if you download it on your desktop, and you can export directly into the formats that you need. But there are also online tools like Spline. Spline will allow you to design models as well. So that's Sketchfab to download what's already built, Blender to build your own, Spline also to build your own. And then one of the big things that I cannot leave out before I kind of wrap is there is, of course, the most popular thing, Gen AI. So Gen AI is also used in 3D modeling. And I think that's important to note because yes, it's everywhere. It's especially useful when you have long workflows like this one. So let's hop over to that slide. Because 3 tools that I would also recommend you to check out are there's a tool called CSM, Common Sense Machines, that allows you to actually upload an image, and then it will create a 3D model for you to try. So say you don't want to do any modeling, right? You're in between Sketchfab and I need something custom. CSM is a perfect middle ground because you can upload a photo of a toy, you can upload a photo of your food, and they'll create a fairly rough 3D model that you can then customize. So CSM is a good place to go. That's csm.ai. Not sponsored, I just think it's pretty cool. NVIDIA as well has they have a research department that's focused on creating 3D assets through Gen AI as well. What they do is they create point clouds online. So they also would say, ask you what you want to create, and you tell it, I want a 3D model of a dog, a dachshund. They're going to create a point cloud of what a dachshund would roughly look like. And then from that, you can take that into more advanced modeling if you need to get into the nitty-gritty. And then Spline, if you don't know Spline, you need to know Spline. Spline is a nice interactive online design tool that allows you to create 3D assets for your site, but also 3D interactions. So say you like the 3D layout, but you don't really need augmented reality. You can integrate Spline's viewer into your Wix site, your Wix Studio site, to allow people to do things like see a shirt customized and change the color, or see a car customized and click on a button to make it bigger, or add your own animations. So Spline is a nice tool for handling those features as well. And yeah, I mean, I think there are other things we could definitely talk about. One thing I'd like us to look at are some of the considerations and limitations, because it's not all perfect, right? And we have to keep in mind that we're developing for today, but we're also developing for the future. So a lot of the things that work right now in a shaky way, like scene tracking on mobile when you're on the web, are going to get better as the sensors in the devices get better. Now, I know I mentioned that mixed reality is like a marketing term, and I really do feel that, because while there was a bigger distinction before, our phones are getting really smart. Our phones have depth sensors in them now, especially the iPhone, that rivals some of these earlier prototypes, right? So they can figure out where you are from here, and you can measure your door frame in a very accurate way with your iPad or your iPhone. So while we are getting the best experience when we put it to the local or the native viewer, I do think that a lot of these limitations, like scene tracking on mobile on the web, are going to be cleared up as the devices get better and as the web gets better at managing these heavy workloads. But that said, one of the considerations is, how big is your model? How big is this 3D model that you're putting on your site? Because the bigger it is, the more detail that it has, the slower the loading time. And that's the slower the initial load, which will give your users a bad experience if they're waiting on the site for the model to load. But it's also going to be a slower re-download when you try to open it in augmented reality on one of the viewers. And so you have to consider things like model size. I'll give you a quick example. One thing that makes models very heavy is fine detail like hair. So if you look to the side of my head, there's not much, I don't have any wavy locks, right? So if you had a model of my head, oh, you're good to go. You could just paint my hair as one big black covering, and we'd be good. I'd be like, that guy looks 80% like me. But when you get into the fine details of long, straight hair, each of those hair strands is made up of a triangle or a polygon. So the more details, the bigger the model. And so that's something to watch out for, especially on your site if you're trying to give a very high quality experience. If you're going to do that, then there are ways to load in the background so that they don't have a bad experience. You can put up a loading symbol in front of the model so that they're not waiting thinking that it's broken. But you can also put it lower down in the page and let it load, and then they stumble upon this excellent experience if that works for you. And yeah, I mean, Brandon, we could honestly go on, but I would love to know, if you have any questions at this point.
For sure, yeah. Let's dive into some stuff. So my first question is, and then ladies and gentlemen in the chat, whether or not you guys have questions, please load them up in the chat, whether you guys are on YouTube and or Instagram, because now is the time. Whether it is links that you guys want access to, I tried to put as much as possible both on both platforms, so you guys could kind of check them out at your leisure. But if you guys have other ones, let me know, or any that I missed. So we talked a little bit about the what and a little bit of the how, but some concrete things that I think that would be highly beneficial for everybody who's watching is why have 3D AR and VR on a platform like Wix in the first place? What are the use cases?
Yeah. From what I've seen, the base use case is you want to increase the experience and stickiness of your site with your user. So 3D, especially AR and VR, is really focused on heightening what is already there. It's like an extension. What do I mean by that? You might have an image of a car, but you want to give the user more detail. Typically, you'll see, even on Lamborghini's website, view in AR or view in VR. So it's not to replace the image. It's like you can go deeper on this topic that I'm trying to present to you. And so if you're adding it to a Wix website for like an education website, so it's medical education, and you want the students to actually see more detail on the cadaver, that's a great use case. They can pull it up. You can have it click a button and they'll say, this bone does this, this muscle does this. And so you're increasing the experience through the web versus just looking at a picture. VR is it's the same thing, but because you're fully immersed, it has some other requirements to even get into it.
So it sounds like to me there's a lot of the use cases are in like education, higher things that require more experience, more in depth, almost like experiences where it's just like an image doesn't cut it. An image and some annotations is not gonna help a student understand a little bit more what they need to, like a med student, understand about a body part or whatnot. So are we seeing with it, probably 3D is more so from a design perspective, but more so like the AR VR. Like, are we seeing a lot of like educational institutions kind of going this way? Is it more so for really, my main question is, do we see this sort of technology specifically in education, or are there other verticals utilizing this technology in a way that we haven't really discussed?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll give some practical examples to kind of back it up. Education is one, but art is probably the biggest use case right now. And like most technology, the artists are taking it first, and then we figure out what to do after. That's usually the art of the military. But in this so here in Jamaica, we have an interactive artist who will put like AR art on the wall, and when you go to it, say there are wings, then the wings start flapping. The Smithsonian Institute in New York has over 3,000 models on their site of their artwork. So, or I should say their pieces. So you can actually go on and see in augmented reality, like this is Jefferson, or you can look at what was this plane like back in the day. So it's a lot of art and archival. Those are two that are using it outside of the education sphere. Lamborghini's using it to sell cars. And I think e-commerce is a big area that you can actually do. So I guess one of the things I didn't get to go into is some of the advanced use cases. But one of them is geo-tracking. So if you are interested in building an online game, that is something that you can make use of, where let's say I'm walking around my yard and I'm looking for these items and they're in augmented reality. And every time I walk to a location, the geo-tracking on the website says, okay, time to show Chris this item. That's one way you can actually pull it up as well. And keepsakes. There's a guy that on YouTube mentioned you can use this as well to do like, let's say I sent Brandon a birthday gift and I'm like, click this link. And there's somebody Ray Charles is on something on his wall singing "Happy Birthday, Brandon," in a video, an interactive video format. That's one way that you can use this practically today.
Got it. Yeah, because it's really, I mean, it's funny that you said it's either military or military or art that kind of take up the tech first. What has been some of your favorite applications of the things that we've talked about today? Like, do you have specific examples where, you know, people who are interested, maybe they don't necessarily have an exact question for today, they're kind of processing all the information in tools and resources that you kind of gave today. What are some other examples that we can just be like, I love this, and like 3 things that I can Google really quick and pop them in the chat, or just one. It doesn't have to be 3. That's straining the brain a little too much. One of your favorite applicants of
this,
kind of what we discussed today.
Yeah. Let's start with VR a little bit. I used to love, there's a platform that I used to love, starting here in a bad way, but Mozilla Hubs had this virtual reality platform that allowed pretty much anyone to build. That was exciting because it was easy to use to build. So they have a lot of resources that are helpful for persons to see how they could go about building. Unfortunately, the platform isn't active anymore as of last month, but that is something in terms of education. It was very accessible. And I also love Walkabout Mini Golf as a VR application for its simplicity. Having that shared space is excellent. The experience is excellent. For augmented reality, the things I've seen, I mean, like, it's small things like actually being able to measure your door using the iPad app. That's kind of like a small win, but I haven't.
Well, let's contextualize this. AR, VR in the context of, because today's session is a little bit how to integrate AR, VR, and 3D in Wix Studio. Is there anything on the Wix platform within this category that you've been like, wow, that is fire?
Yeah. Boy, I'm waiting. No, and there's an opportunity to pull it up, because the things I've been most excited about, unfortunately, are the things that I've been building on the studio, because we have an augmented reality plugin. So, like, even seeing the Lamborghini in my yard, I'm like, okay, that's actually practical. I could see people using this on an e-com site. Before you buy the chain for the person's site or the necklace, you can actually say, this is how it would look on my vanity. This is how it would look on the person's chest. So things like that, I'm looking forward to seeing more of on the web. But I don't think we've done a lot as yet, especially not on Wix.
For sure. And I do love the tool Spline that you mentioned to us, along with the other one. Spline is just a nice, easy way to not necessarily have to model, but really get a nice output and interactive 3D experience on your site. Be able to make something in their editor, animate it, decide what interactions exactly you want to have happen over click, hover, etc. Really, I think it's pretty much a pretty heavy it's designer first platform. There's no coding necessary in the platform, correct?
You don't have to get deep into code. Like, even you can customize variables. You don't have to get into code. And the beautiful thing about Spline is that when you're ready to add that animation to your site, Spline also gives you the code to do that. So you can just embed it on Wix. And they have a custom element as well. So using Wix Studio's custom element tool, you can actually add the Spline viewer and the code package. And just like that, it's on your site. And I think that is a really easy way to add interactivity to your site. And there are some beautiful animations on there. The reason I hesitate is it's 3D, and you can do cool things like scroll interactions, but it doesn't allow you to go into augmented reality. So you can't add it to your space.
Yeah. And like, as we were saying, different use cases for different things. Like,
for sure.
You know, the people who are solving the problems in the AR, VR space, like, for example, ecom. Guys, I don't measure anything. That little calculator app thing where it's just like, how long is this wall? I don't do any of that. I'm just like, where's Amazon? Where's the VR thing? I need to see how big this couch is. I'm not trying to do 2x4s. The mouth is not strong here. So I, I really do appreciate the AR VR for that. The 3D doesn't really cut it there, but for the people who are more so on the artsy fartsy side of things and trying to create a visual interactive 3D experience, and even you can create, I think, pretty simplistic games in Spline at the moment. So definitely check that out.
Definitely can. What I am seeing and what I'm hoping to see is more web-based tracking, because the web as a platform, right? Not just talking about your browser, but the web as a platform is very powerful, and it has a lot of features that most people don't even activate, right? So GPS tracking is an easy one, but you also have Bluetooth. You also have NFC, which you can tap to do. So all of that is built into the browser. And imagine pairing some of those things with the augmented reality development. So you're walking and you don't have the Google Maps app, but you're at a store and you're getting navigated through the aisles, or you're at the supermarket and you're on your website and they're like, you want this in your shopping cart, just follow this arrow, right? These are experiences that can be built through the web and can be built on Wix, but we haven't gotten there yet. So challenge is open.
Challenge is open, ladies and gentlemen. You have to be first, especially when it comes to Wix Studio. Be first or be square. Chris, what would you say is, for those who are listening, they're like, I like what I heard today. I'm still a little, I don't really know where to start and or really what problems to solve. And based on what problems I'm trying to solve, what tools I should actually go after. Basically what I'm asking you to kind of share with everybody is kind of like a final thought for people who are interested in getting in their feet wet in AR, 3D, and VR, how they should approach it, and what one or two tools should they approach first?
Sure. Love that question. I would say that just like with design, because this is just another tool or another technology to actually reach people, just like with anything, what should you tackle is up to you. Yes, there are things you can use to learn. So there are online tools like a model viewer. I mentioned that we also have a Wix app that you can install on your site, and in minutes you can get the model to show up with augmented reality. But which model to show is definitely up to you. I believe that God has given everybody a passion that they should really follow after. And so what I would recommend is go to practical steps, go to sketchfab.com, search the models, and look for something that's in your field. If you like storybooks, they have storybook models. If you like video games, they have video game models. But the most important thing is to actually try it. Put something on your website, see how it goes, and then figure out, all right, I'm passionate about real estate, let's do that. I had a guy that he's in Colombia, and his foundation focuses on what can an environment look like when it's built up. So he's in Bogota, and the spaces that he's in are really bad in terms of poverty. And his goal was to build something that would allow him to visualize, if we were to develop this space, this is what it would look like, and we can carry this to the government. And so he built around that. And we did something for him as well, just to show him, you can do this on the web as well, to show these things to persons. If that's your passion and you're like, boy, development is what I want to do, then that is a good way to spend your energy when it comes to 3D modeling and learning. The shortcut does not exist. So anything you choose is going to take a good set of research and work. Sketchfab for the models, YouTube University for modeling, but most importantly, try it out and stick to what your God-given passion is. Drop mic. Just joking.
Oh, whoops, my bad.
Yeah.
I was trying to click on the keyboard, guys, and start running my mouth and forgot to unmute. But basically what I was saying was just summarizing what Chris was saying. Pick a lane, master it, then you can diversify afterwards. But ladies and gentlemen, we are closing on time. I stole all the questions, but you guys really enjoyed today's session. Thank you guys for coming out both on Instagram and YouTube. Actually, where can we find you online, Chris? I already put in the chat where we could find you on the interwebs in terms of a website, but feel free to drop your website, any tags on social media. Where can we find you online?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for sharing for me. Main place I post is LinkedIn. That is where you'll find me the most. But you can also follow 3 Software on Instagram. We just started. I don't even think we have a post, but we have a page because we needed to. So 3 Software on Instagram and 3software.com as the website. That's where we're going to be posting more articles about how you can actually get started. We even have one for how you can get started with augmented reality today. So 3software.com.
Awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. And thank you so much, Chris, for having the time to come out today. Ladies and gentlemen, if you guys are watching on YouTube, we will update the description with all the links that we had from today's session in just a little bit after we conclude here. But if you guys are not familiar with the Newform community events or our community at all, we are a community on Discord with over 10,000 amazing web designers, creatives alike, doing cool things, showing up for events like this, and learning from one another each and every day. So if you guys are interested, please put in the chat on Instagram, in the live chat, join, and we'll automatically send you a DM with all the information. If you guys are on YouTube, the links are in the description, and most likely if you're on YouTube, you're already in the fam. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. And Chris, any final last words for the peeps who are live with us?
Boy, if you do want to actually get started, please reach out. It would be my pleasure. If you're in Discord, you can Discord me. But please reach out any way you can, because I would love to get you started on this, especially if you want to try out the augmented reality plugin on your site.
Awesome. All right, guys, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out, and we'll see you in the Discord. See you guys. Bye.